Thanks very much, Renee. And thanks for opening the meeting, Heather, having the room open. My name is Jimmy. I'm an adult that grew up in an alcoholic dysfunctional home. And I'm also a recovering alcoholic. Or some people would say, I am a recovered alcoholic. And I absolutely love my sobriety and I love my life. I come from a big, long line of alcoholics. There's an old Irish saying, madness doesn't run in my family, it gallops. And I have an abundance of crazy fucked upness in my family. Crazy. My mother was the co-alcoholic and my father was the alcoholic. So my mother would devise the most devilish of plans to get my father off the drink. One of those was parading us around to the pubs and telling us to go into that pub there and see if your father is in there. And she'd send, now I'm number 2 of 8. So she'd have her, my brother's like little what we call octopus tentacles running in and out of pubs to see if they could get my father out of the pub. There was one particular day she sent me into this pub because it was a Friday afternoon and my father wouldn't come home on a Friday afternoon. He would go and he would spend his wages in the bar. It was Dan Redden's pub on Wolftown Street in Limerick. And I went in and he's sitting down, he's playing poker with his friends. I said, Dad, man, what the fuck are you doing in here? He says to me. I said, man, don't you man me. What are you doing in here? I said, Ma'am sent me in for the money. I've got no fucking money. Just tell her I'm not here. So out I go to my mother and I said to her, Ma'am, he told me to tell you that he's not in there. Get in there, she says. Get in and get him out. Get him out. Get him out now. And I would go in and out and in and out. And the terror that brought up in me was absolutely incredible. The mind fuck that it brought up in me was just unbelievable. So what I learned to do was disassociate. And there's learning in growing up in an alcoholic home. I learned to survive. That's what I learned to do. I needed to survive and I needed to protect myself. So I went into a kind of a la-la land, kind of a cloud cuckoo land, and I resided there. And that's how I learned to protect myself. It was very, very, very painful. I felt that I didn't belong in that family. I felt that I had been adopted, that I was stolen at birth. And it was these people that were raising me. And eventually my real parents that really loved me would come and rescue me. And it was so traumatic that I remember sitting down, writing a note to my mother. I would have been around 9 or 10, and I wasn't feeling the love. And it was very, very, very painful. And I was crying, and I decided I was going to leave home. And I wrote this little note, and I was crying, and my tears landed on the paper. And I circled them with a little biro, and I pointed toward tears. And I left the note on the table, and I left the house. And I was traveling to Cork. Now, why Cork, I don't know. And I didn't even know how to get to Cork. So I walked down one of these streets in Limerick. It's called the Long Avenue in Limerick. And it was cold and it was dark and I was frightened. I had another thought. I said, if I lie down here on the ground, somebody might pick me up and love me. So I lay down on the ground. Nobody picked me up. Nobody hugged me. Nobody loved me. And it was horrible. And I went back home. And my brothers had found the letter. And they laughed. And they showed the letter to my mother. And she laughed. My father wasn't there. He was out drinking. was another day in 1963. It was the winter of 1963. I had wet the bed. I was a bedwetter. And I got up and I tried to cover my crime because my mother used to freak out when I wet the bed. She would go ballistic. And she called me all the names under the sun. You smelly get, you bastard, you this, you that. Oh my God. And I would just stand there in my little frightened wet underpants and just take it all in. It was incredibly painful. So I dressed myself with my wet underwear and off I went to school. Now, in Ireland in 1963, it was the coldest winter on record. And we kids, we used to wear short pants going to school. Now, if anybody's ever read Angela's Ashes, this is straight out of fucking Angela's Ashes. It really and truly is. I was on my way out. We lived in an army barracks. My father was in the army. And there was also handball alleys. This is where the soldiers used to play handball. And I went into this handball alley and I said a prayer. I said, God, please, who's going to take care of me? And I cried inside in that handball alley. I've never, ever, ever forgotten it. This is my inner child now that I'm sharing. I cried and I cried and I cried. And I went into school and I was beaten in school because I wasn't speaking the Irish language. And I knew that if I had gone home, I was going to be beaten as well. And there was that catch-22 dilemma as well. Jumping forward a couple of years, I was 13. I witnessed my father beating my mother. And I made a promise to myself that when I grew up, I was going to be a good father. And I've heard countless adult children make that promise to themselves, especially when they witness something traumatic in their own families of origin. I now look back on that in hindsight and say to myself, Jimmy, you are fulfilling that promise. I didn't make a promise to myself that I was going to be a good husband. Didn't make that. Good father. It's been one of my greatest ambitions. It was my only ambition. And I remember somebody asked me, what do you want to be when you grow up, Jimmy? I wanted to be a bus conductor. Now, here in Ireland, the bus conductor was in total control. Bus conductor pressed the bell and the bus would move off. Bus conductor collected the money. I had to pay the bus conductor. In my child's mind, as far as I was concerned, he was keeping that money for himself. I didn't see any driver in the bus. All I saw was a bell being pressed and the bus moved off. So he was in total control. And there is the genesis of Jimmy being a control freak. That's the genesis of it. Because I wanted control. And in my mind, I would fantasize that I had all this power, that I could tell the police officers, just by telepathy, stand outside every pub in Limerick and do not let my father, his name was Kerr, do not let him into the bar. Tell him he's to go home and take care of his wife and children. And I lived in this unreal fantasy world. And in the mix then of all of that, my mother used me as her confidant. So unwittingly, I became my mother's emotional husband. And she was just as destructive. She would have said to me, Jimmy, when you grow up, I want you to promise me that you will kill him for what he's doing to me. Now, no child should hear that from their parents. So when I was 14 or 15, because my father was drinking, Jimmy became the hero then, the hero child. And on television, we had the fucking Waltons. Oh, Jesus Christ, the Waltons. And of course, in Jimmy's Cloud Cuckoo Land, Jimmy wanted to be like John Boy Walton. It's amazing, even to this day. My son-in-law calls me Jim Bob. It's really where I saw the Waltons and I wanted my be like this. There was John Walton. He was such a super fucking dad. And there was Mrs. Walton, and she was superwoman with about 15 or 16 different children. And the meals were incredible. And the mountain, Walton's fucking mountain. Oh, and these people must.
Jimmy, you are freezing. You might want to try turning your video
This was
off,
my
maybe.
self that I wouldn't drink. Okay. Sorry about that now. Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
You hear me? Yep. Okay. No problem. Okay. So that I wouldn't drink alcohol. But I had already been drinking alcohol, but I didn't recognize it as alcohol. I was drinking my father's cider, and it tasted like lemonade. And I fucking loved it. Absolutely loved it. So at the age of 19, possibly, didn't like me at the age of 19. I drank 3 pints of Smithwick's inside in a bar in Limerick. And the name of that bar was called the Vintage Bar. And I felt sick. So I went home and I went to bed. And I promised myself I'm never going. My career. Now, my drinking career only lasted a couple of years. I was fascinated with Alcoholics Anonymous before I ever drank. And he's now an alcoholic. And because I have a disease, I wasn't responsible. And I fucking hated that. I hate.
I hate to keep interrupting,
Off
but
now.
you're still freezing.
I was an alcoholic, and this okay. There we go. I'll leave the camera off altogether.
Thank you.
But I was going to continue. And I continued drinking, and I met this woman. Her name was Jackie Sims. And I fell madly in love with her. And she came from an alcoholic home. And we decided after about a year or two that we were going to get married. I was 21. The night before I got married, I had a stag party, and I completely blacked out. And of course, it was in the army barracks. My father, now at this stage, was sober. He was sober. We got married, and where are you going to? I'm going out. You can't. Between the two of us began physical violence. Now, she was just as violent as I was. There was a pair of us in it. And by 1983, it got worse and worse. And I decided perhaps go to meetings of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I went to my first meeting. Actually, it was 1979. I went to my first meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. But in 1983, I quit the drinking. But I was very unhappy. I was very, very, very unhappy. I missed having fun with the alcohol. I missed going out. But I persevered because I'm a fucking control freak. I persevered. I said, no, I'm not going to go back drinking. I'm not going to go back drinking. And I had moved in with my mother about 2 months after I'd moved out. I had been living with an aunt of mine, and then my parents. So this particular evening, it was a Wednesday evening. It was June, around this time of the year. And my world collapsed, and I went back drinking. And I was in an awful state altogether. August 1983.
Can't hear you, Jimmy.
And feel that I've been saying AA, just keep coming back, keep coming back, keep coming back. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me?
Can hear you now. It's coming. It's
Can
cutting
you hear me
out
now?
a lot,
Yeah.
though.
You're frozen there now again.
Yeah.
Fucking thing. All right, I'll knock off the camera. Now, I'll try it on my phone.
Try now.
You hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to try and come on by my telephone, see if my telephone works.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Maybe by the window. I can hear you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I will come in by my telephone, see if my telephone works.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good, does it?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I'll try and I'll try and hurry it up. I spent a few years in Alcoholics Anonymous. No, I'm still in AA, but I stood outside one of the conventions in 1987. And I thought to myself, I'm outgrowing all this AA shit. I said, it's not suiting me. It doesn't, I wasn't feeling the love like I felt when I was a child. I wasn't feeling it. And for some strange reason, in 1988, I came across what we just read out at the start of the meeting. Some of us coming to these meetings were distressed and in a stage of unresolved grief. I totally got that. I totally got it. And I said, what's this? And somebody said to me, that's called Adult Children of Alcoholics. Jesus. I was like, that's fantastic. And I put it away then, and that was it. That was it. I put it away until I arrived in Vancouver in 1991. And I've shared this story before at these meetings. And I was visiting my sister. And on her television was these two women from ACA. And they were talking about what it felt like growing up in an alcoholic home. Now, these two women were in AA as well. And I was fascinated by how authentic and how real these two women were. And I said to my sister, I said, can I ring that tell? She said, yeah. She said, the phone's over here free. She says, 1-800. Free? I said, the phone numbers are free. Fuck, I says, I'm going to move to Vancouver. The old water missing mind again. That same old thinking. I love that part of myself today. I don't denigrate that part of myself at all. So I had decided I was going to move to Vancouver based on a fact that phone calls were free over there. So I'm listening to these two women, and I ring the station, and they said to me, Jimmy, would you like to tell us something about yourself? And I said, my name is Jimmy, and I am an alcoholic. And by then I was in, my first marriage had broken up, and I was in another relationship, and that relationship was ending as well. And I was in a lot of pain. And I shared with these two women that I left the second relationship because I thought that if I didn't get out of that relationship, I would destroy my other daughter and this other lady. Her name was Maureen. And I absolutely loved her as well. Loved her. A fucking sucker for punishment. And their reply to me was incredible. I've never forgotten it. They said, that is a typical response from an adult that grew up in an alcoholic home. We think that we have all this power, that the mere fact that we're standing in the presence of another human being, we think that we can destroy them. And I thought, when I get back to Ireland, I need to go to ACA. Or it was known as ACUA back then. So when I came back to Ireland, that was February of 1991. And I was in an airport in Chicago. And it was just about that time when America was invading Iraq. And alarms went off all over the airport. And I went, oh, fuck, the nuclear bombs are being launched. We're all fucked. And I went on my knees praying that the world wouldn't end before I could go to an ACA meeting. So I went to my first ACA meeting in Limerick. And it completely revolutionized and changed my life. I felt that I at long last belonged. I felt I was feeling the love. I was starting to feel it. And it was so fucking powerful. I'm even getting emotional now thinking about it. It was so palpable and powerful that I was feeling the love at long last. I'm with my tribe. Now, there's nothing wrong with Alcoholics Anonymous. Nothing at all. I love AA. But ACA is my tribe. These are the people that understand the feelings. These are the people that understand the fucking Walter Mitty bullshit that goes on in our heads. It is understood there, and it is okay. And one of the first meditations that I did in ACA, recapturing the inner child. I remember lying on a couch in a house in Clare Street in Limerick where I was living. This was before I even heard of John Bradshaw. And I imagined my inner child and where he was and what he was doing. He wasn't living in a house. He wasn't living in a castle. He was in the clouds. That's where he was, because that's where he felt safe. Did not feel safe attached to the earth at all. And I visited that little child in the clouds, and he was wearing Wellington boots. And if anybody grew up wearing Wellington boots, you get ire around your legs from wearing them. And he was covered in ire, and it stung. The sting from the ire. If you've experienced it, you know what I'm talking about. And he said to me, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I'm here to take care of you. I'm here to take you with me. And I promise you, I'm going to take care of you for the rest of your life. You will never have to go through what you went through as a child ever again." And I embraced that little child. And I carry him with me. As for the inner teenager, as we say in Ireland, sin scéal, the inner teenager did not surface for years and years and years. During lockdown, I visited ACA and I couldn't fucking believe it. Could not believe what ACA had morphed into. Couldn't believe it. And of course, there's an old saying in Alcoholics Anonymous, all an alcoholic that has a resentment needs is a coffee pot and a meeting room to set up their own meeting. And that's what I did. I decided, I went to a couple of meetings in Cork. And I met some really, really close friends in the Cork meeting. And I loved it. There was no spiritual timekeeper there either. And then I decided I was going to set up Limerick ACA without having a clue of what I was doing. Not a fucking bull's notion. So the first meeting of Limerick ACA was roughly, I don't know, it could have been over 3 years or 3 years ago. I know, I'm not too sure. But it was about 7 or 8 people attended the meeting. Avril was one of them. She was at the very first meeting. Caroline arrived shortly thereafter. And people started to arrive. It's up like, if I had controlled this and tried to control it, I'll put my camera back on. If I tried to control this, it wouldn't have worked. It just would not have fucking worked, because I have fucked up so many things in life that this needed a power greater than myself. That's what it needed. And I said, okay, okay. And in my little water reading, build it and they will come, was one of the that I heard. And people just arrived to Limerick ACA. And people started saying, well, can we set up a meeting here? Can we say, yeah. The room is there, just it's there 24 hours a day. You can set up a meeting anytime you want. And that's the genesis of Limerick ACA. I'm a Walter Mitty fucking character. No, I'm still Walter Mitty. And I share at meetings at times that the God that I believe in, it's unconditional. And this God that I believe in is the greatest recycler. We don't need any fucking Green Party. I have a God that recycles everything about you, mate, and uses it to his benefit, or her. So it's like, it doesn't matter, okay? I'm using the word he. But my higher power uses all of Jimmy's negative stuff and recycles it for his goodness. 2 days ago, I'm driving out home after finishing. I teach people how to drive for a lesson. And I'm going, fuck, what am I going to say at this meeting? And then I start planning what I'm going to say. I said, Jimmy, stop with the plans. Stop with making fucking plans. You know where that's going to lead you. I said, okay, yeah, okay. I'll just be authentic and I'll just be myself. And that's it. That's it. I learned to take a pause in ACA. I learned to breathe. I learned to fill my lungs with oxygen. And it's a simple thing. But when you grew up in an alcoholic home and this need to be heard, all these emotions that I had inside myself, I needed therapy. So then I went into therapy and I sought out therapists. And I found this incredible therapist in Limerick about 15 years ago, Monique Prendergast. She's a lovely woman altogether, absolutely fantastic. And of course, after about 5 years, I walked in, I said, okay, today's going to be my last day here now. And she says, it's going to be what? My last day. And she said, what's that to bring that about? I'm done. I'm done with treatment. I'm done with it. Oh, she said, okay. She said, yeah, Jimmy, that's, if that's your choice. She said, if you want to, you're paying me. I said, yeah, and I'm paying you fucking good as well. And I've decided I'm not coming back no more. She said, okay. She said, I would ask you to reflect. Just give it a year, or sorry, not a year, give it a week to reflect on what we've spoken about here today, and particularly what you said towards the end. I said, okay, I'll reflect. And I reflected and I came back and I said, yeah, I've decided I'm finishing up. She said, okay. She said, do you know these relationships that you were in and you left those relationships? She said, we've been in a relationship, she said, for this past 5 years. I've related to you, she says, and you've related to me. And she said, how do you think I feel? And of course, I don't give a fuck how you feel. I'm paying you every fucking week. How should I give a fuck about how you feel? She says, okay, put the money to one side. She says, just put the money to one side. As a woman, she said, how do you think I feel? I said, you probably feel, yes. She said, I am disappointed. And then it was like a light bulb moment inside myself. Fucking hell, Jimmy, you've always shot from the fucking hip. You need to put your guns back in your holster. And when I did that, shortly thereafter, out comes the teenager. Because when I was in treatment with Monique, she said to me, what would you say to your inner teenager? Nothing, says I. Nothing. I said, what do you think your inner? Nothing. He says, he doesn't want to fucking converse with me at all. She, try it. I said, okay. I said, I'll try it. So she put an empty chair inside in the room. Now I felt like an idiot when she put the chair in the room. And she said, what has he got to say? He doesn't give a fuck. That's what he's saying to me. Okay, well, try and converse with him. And of course, the inner teenager. Fuck you, Jimmy. And looked over at Monique and fuck you as well. I'm not conversing with that fucker at all. He doesn't give a fuck about me, and he doesn't give a fuck about the inner child that I had to take care of. And that was it. Until I set up Limerick ACA. And out he came. The inner teenager. And the inner teenager is just as vulnerable as that little child. But he's brilliant at fucking hiding it. He's fucking a taskmaster at hiding how he really, really, really feels. And I have to keep pursuing him. And it is only through the 12 steps. First step, I am admitting that I am powerless over the effects of living with alcoholism. Over the effects. I'm powerless. And I need to be brought to a place of clarity by a power greater than myself. And recognizing the fact that I'm a Walter Mitty character. And that I can trip into the Walter Mittiness at any time of the day or night. And I'm okay with that. It's okay. Walter Mitty is part of myself, is a lovely fucking guy. He's a brilliant fucking dreamer. And he's brilliant at imagination. The creative side of myself is the Walter Mitty as well. So the inner teenager hides every fucking thing. But another thing about the inner teenager, you don't fucking mess with him. Nobody messes with Jimmy anymore because this guy is fucking on the money and he calls people out. And I have incredible friends here. Incredible, I admit. Incredible. My people are in Limerick ACA and they call me out on my bullshit. They really and truly do. And that's fucking powerful. I cannot hide in Limerick ACA. Every time I come to a meeting, I'm practicing the first 3 steps. I did a 4th and 5th step in Alcoholics Anonymous in 1986, and I will never revisit it ever again. And I continue to affirm myself in 6 and 7. And 8 and 9, I continue to grow up. 10 and 11 and 12 are still maintenance steps. These steps are easy. There's a lot of pain involved in it because I'm tapping into my trauma. And like what was read out at the start of the meeting, many of us coming to these meetings were distressed and in some stage of unresolved grief. We felt that we had lost or given up so much in our lives that we had nothing more to give. And that's where I was coming from, folks. I said, fuck that. I'm fucked. I cannot give anything to anybody anymore. I'm not able. And the type of industry that I worked in was the catering industry. Of course it was. Sure, I was going to love everybody, take care of everybody. And I hated it. I hated the catering industry. Hated it. And a psychotherapist said to me one time, Jimmy, he said, you need to get out of that business. And of course, where was Jimmy going to go for? Jimmy was going to train up as a psychotherapist. And I would have been the best fucking psychotherapist on fucking planet Earth because when Jimmy sets his mind to do something, I am brilliant at what I do. Brilliant. I teach people how to drive for a living and they tell me I'm fucking brilliant. And I'm well able to take that compliment now and then shut the fuck up. Thank you very much. That's what I said to them. Jimmy, you're brilliant. When people pass their driving test, somebody said to me one time, what is the greatest achievement in your life, Jimmy? Passing my driving test. And they laughed. They fucking laughed at that. I said, why are you laughing? They said, that's not an achievement. Everybody passes their driving test. What's your ambition? 0. It's like, you have to have a 5-year plan. No, I don't have a 5-year plan. Don't have that. I could have been a brilliant comedian if I put my mind to it. I didn't want that. Didn't want it. I'm happy where I am, listening to those bells outside. I'm happy with my life. I have a 14-year-old daughter. I have a 34-year-old daughter. I have a 43-year-old daughter. I have 6 grandkids. My cup overflows. It really and truly does. Now, let me see. Hold on, I've got on for 35 minutes. It's
Are
not
you
a
checking
record.
timer?
Checking my timer. And I hate checking. I hate fucking, and people know that. I was kicked out of an ACA meeting 3 years ago because I cried for 3 minutes. And the spiritual timekeeper said, you've 30 seconds left. And I said, I fucking told you, do not under any circumstances time me. I'm an adult and I'll fucking time myself. And they kicked me out of the meeting. I'm rambunctious and that's who I am. That's who I am. I don't like being controlled by, even if you call yourself a spiritual timekeeper, I won't adhere to it. And I won't go to any ACA meeting that has spiritual timekeepers. And that's their loss. And that's a powerful thing for Jimmy to say. They're losing out on my presence because they want to be so fucking controlling. And they don't want to listen to Tom over there because Tom shites on for 20 minutes. Now, I get pissed off with people shiting on for 20 minutes. And we've come up with some lovely strategies here in Limerick ACA. We will just send you a gentle reminder. Perhaps you might want to wrap it up now. We've been talking. And I share at meetings. I'm a sharer. I'm a talker. I always was a talker. I come from a long fucking line of talkers. My grandfather was a talker. I got the gift of talking eloquently from a working class family in a place called the Island Field in Limerick. Now, the Island Field in Limerick is a working class, predominantly working class area. Tough, fucking hard. If you fell and you cried, you were called a fucking sissy. Shut the fuck up. That old fucking crying. You'll turn into a fucking Mary Ann. That's what Jimmy grew up with. But if you were a girl and you fell, oh, you got loads of hugs. Oh, God, love. And the heads were turned aside. It was like, oh, God, you poor misfortune. Come in, I give you a hug. Little boys fell, you were fucked off out. Shut the fuck up. Put a dress on him there, is what they would say as well. Which you're all whinging, with those all crying. I grew up with all of that. And that was the trauma that I brought into Alcoholics Anonymous, and I brought it into ACA. And I have met my teachers in AA and in ACA. And if people are really, 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 really want to do this work, it's going to involve pain. It's going to involve it. It's going to be there. There's a tremendous amount of people here today, and I'm grateful for each and every single person that's here, particularly the people that are in service, that have kept this group going for this past 3 years, particularly those. And as for the people that stand in the background and criticize, that's where you need to be. That's where you need to be. You still belong in Limerick ACA, though. You still belong here. And we will love you and encourage you no matter what. And that is the power of recovery. I've experienced the 12 traditions in ACA, and I'm glad that we're talking about the 12 traditions in ACA as well, because I can apply the 12 traditions to my personal life. And when this group expresses itself as a group conscience, it's expressed as love. And nobody has the right to shut somebody down. For 3.5 minutes or 3.5 seconds, nobody. I don't have that right. And collectively as a group, we don't have that right. And it's a God as it expresses itself at our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants. We do not govern. So how would a higher power treat one of its own? Certainly would not hand them a fucking watch and tell people to shut up and after that. That's Limerick ACA. It's worked off of its conscience as it expresses itself. And there's so much power in that. There really and truly is. And all of my life, I lacked power. All of my life. I feel the power today, and I feel the love today. What I didn't get as a child, I am now responsible. And it always amuses me about people who come on, how do I do this? How do I do that? And it's there in the solution. And that's why Limerick ACA reads the solution out at the end of the meeting. Because you have to stay for the whole fucking meeting to find out the solution. And if you're like me, you want the solution before you even hear the fucking problem. You want to hear the problem. I want to give me the fucking solution. Tell me how I can fix myself. I'm never going to be able to fix myself. Never. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So I surrender to a power greater than myself. And it's unconditional and it's loving. So if I have a difficulty with something, I turn it over to God. Say, God, you can take care of it. Now, going back to my time, 41 minutes. I'm going to leave it at that. 41 minutes is enough, for fuck's sake. I thought I would only last 20 minutes. I'm going to leave it at that. Thanks, everybody, for being here. Cheers, everybody.